Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Bulletproof Selling. Sean Rhodes here, Chief Sales Sergeant of Bulletproof Selling and author of the book Bulletproof Selling, a guide for systemizing sales on the battlefield of business. Now, here at Bulletproof Selling, our mantra and our mission is to ensure that salespeople around the world know that hope is not a sales strategy. Didn't work for us on the battlefield where I was able to embed with combat teams around the world, and it doesn't work for us in sales. On the battlefield of business, you may be thinking, well, Sean, I'm in sales, but I'm not getting shot at. Well, it doesn't matter if you're getting shot at or not. You're still on the battlefield. How is this a battlefield? You're in a battle every day for the attention of your prospects. You're in a battle against everything else that was on their calendar. You're in a battle against your competition, and you're oftentimes in a battle with yourself against being better than you were yesterday. And hope, if it enters in any of those platforms, you will not get the results you're after. You'll not be able to sell as much as you're capable of selling, but more importantly, you won't be able to serve as much as you're capable of serving. So over 100 episodes in now, we've been able to bring on guests that have been Hall of Fame speakers, best-selling authors, folks that are out there leading sales teams, and folks that are working on sales process to make sure that sales teams around the world know that hope doesn't have to be part of their strategy either. And out of every single one of these episodes, we've been able to build a sales system. Whatever that topic ends up being, wherever my guest says to me, hey, Sean, salespeople, they're relying on hope too much in this area, that's where we build our sales system. And that sales system is available to you over at bulletproofselling.us, so you can begin using it, no matter the size of your team or the size of your goals. Now, one area that I get to work with sales teams on a lot is the fuel that fuels their pipeline. And it's not their scripts, it's not their strategies, it's the source of their leads, where their leads come from. Because if you only have 10 leads in your pipeline, you can work as hard as you want on those 10 leads. But unless you give yourself new fuel, unless new leads enter that pipeline, you will be limited. It's an inhibitor on your success, on your progress, on your ability to serve the folks that you're out there to serve, no matter what it is that you're selling. So when I heard from today's guest that we were going to be focusing on lead generation, we're going to be focusing on a big area where salespeople limit their own success by saying, hey, this is all there is. It's all I'm capable of being or all I'm capable of doing. Well, I was excited to have this conversation, especially since this guy calls himself the sales doctor. And if you know of any good doctors, you know that they're not going to walk in and just start dropping prescriptions on you, because those aren't doctors. Those are called drug dealers. But a good doctor will take the time to assess, look at the symptoms, look at the overall picture, and then make a recommendation. So I'm excited to get into how this applies to the sales process with today's guest, Mr. Chet Lovegren, CEO of the Sales Doctor. Chet, welcome, sir, to Bulletproof Selling.
Sean, thanks for having me. Excited to be here. Love the podcast name, love the format, and excited to dive into the battlefield of business with you, brother.
Awesome, man. Well, I've got to look at your resume, and it looks like you've been on this battlefield for quite a while. So walk our guests through your history in sales. I know you've gotten to work all the way from, I think, door knocking, all the way to working with some of the largest companies on the planet. So walk us through a little bit about your sales journey.
Yeah, a cumulative over a decade of sales and sales leadership experience. I think my very first piece of selling was when I was doing my paper out when I was 12. And they used to have this contest every summer where it was whoever can sell the most new subscriptions gets this, or if you sell this many subscriptions, you get entered in a raffle for this. And so I always wanted that top prize. And I always thought to myself, it's so interesting. I'm already walking this route anyway. Why don't I just knock on the doors along the route and see who else wants to buy a subscription? All the other kids that were carrying newspapers would go to their church and try to have their parents sell newspaper subscriptions to their work. But I was like, hey, the more papers I deliver, the more money I make. Everybody's going to their church and selling, but half those people aren't even on their route. For me, I not only do I make money on the sale, but I make money every time I deliver the papers. And that was really my first experience in selling, was like, hey, how do I double down on those efforts? I'm already walking this route anyway. Make the money up front for the new subscription, make the money recurring every time I deliver a paper for them. Anything from that to selling Kirby vacuums in college, to slinging tuxedos and formal wear right post-grad after that. And then more formally in the B2B world, jumped into commercial insurance in 2015. Did that for a long time before jumping into tech in early 2019, right before we did this crazy work from home thing that a lot of us in tech are doing. It was so funny because I remember the first tech job I got in early 2019 when I was career transitioning from commercial insurance into tech. my boss was like, hey, this is like an inside sales job. Like you have to show up in an office every day. Like it's not like door knocking anymore and like doing outside sales. And I was like, yeah, that's fine. And then wouldn't you know, like a few months later, we're all sitting back at home anyway. So it was really interesting. And I feel like that also gave me a leg up because I had already been in that remote environment for a lot of my life when I had done commercial insurance. And so everybody was trying to figure out how to manage their time and stay focused. And I'm like, hey, baby, I got this. I've been here. I've done that. And then moved into SDR leadership and then kind of went from there to where I'm at now, where I'm the founder of my own sales consulting agency.
And tell us about the types of clients that you work with. Are they folks that are still in tech? Are they back in the insurance world, or do you branch out across a bunch of different industries now?
We have a pretty good hybrid right now. I think just because I'm a one-man show with some contractors that help with other things that we're doing, predominantly mostly tech companies. That could be IT security, hospitality, all sorts of different software applications, anything from pre-seed startups to, Series A, Series B, well-funded companies. And then we do a lot still in commercial insurance as well. I think just by nature, it was easy to apply a lot of the B2B stuff that I learned in tech that felt like a 4-year college degree in B2B sales, and bring that back to the insurance world where a lot of it is still pretty archaic and it's just about pounding doors. There's no method to the madness. It's just a volume game. So there's an ability to upskill people and make them more efficient in that world. So we've gone into that as well. I'm sure we'll start finding other industries to branch out in. But when you think about a startup, you think about what is your minimum viable product? What gives you the best product market fit after that? I think that's why we stuck in these two industries that we're really in right now. But obviously, tons of people are out doing different types of selling. So there's a opportunity to venture out into different industries. But right now, for the sake of where we're at, and we're in our first year full time, I think that's why I kind of stayed in those two industries. Is what I know.
That's beautiful, sir. And I know you and I chatted before the show about the areas that you're seeing salespeople really, I don't know, fall back on hope in a negative way. And something that always struck me as really interesting was the salespeople that were really good at selling would close a bunch of deals, and then suddenly their revenue would drop, and they were wondering why, because they're really skilled at what they do, but
Mhm.
they're missing a very important element of the sales process, which is making sure you have new folks to sell to. So I'm curious in the whole lead process, conversion or sourcing, where do you see salespeople relying on hope more than they should in the fuel that fuels their pipeline?
I think relying on marketing for leads, it seems
Mm,
really weird to me when I talk to SDRs or AEs or even full cycle sellers where it's like, well, I'm just struggling because I haven't gotten a lot of leads from marketing. And it's kind of a thing where it's like, well, do you still want to eat? You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, so that's great, but like, are you going to let someone else indicate your success? If I let someone else indicate my success, I'd still be where I was over a decade ago, but I'm not. And so I don't think people take enough ownership of their own lead generation. Like think about it this way, if you can take whatever you're already successful with from marketing or to what extent you are, and then double down on that with something else with extra time that you have or little pockets where you can find time, or even maybe if we're all realistic with ourselves, especially if we're in a remote environment, go actually do your job, because I've done a lot of these time audits and I can tell you most people in sales are working 25 to 30 hours a week. So go take those 10 hours that you're getting paid for that you're not working, you're just sitting around on your couch watching PTI or something, and go do some prospecting. I mean, prospecting is emotionally and physically draining work. Makes you tired, it makes you angry, it makes you frustrated, but it's the price that has to be paid to earn an income that you want. And there are a lot of different ways we can dig into on what lead generation looks like from a process perspective, but that's definitely one of the biggest stopgaps for people is they just aren't doing enough of their own prospecting and they're just relying on marketing for their leads.
Now, I'm going to try to vocalize the pushback that I think a lot of our listeners are probably having right now, where they could say, Chet, I'd love to have more leads, man, but my company is set up so that my marketing team gives me my leads. And when I don't get those leads in, I don't have anybody to reach out to. So, what would you say to somebody that is pushing this problem off onto marketing or onto some other part of their organization that's normally providing their leads?
I could throw a bunch of stats about how many companies I've worked with directly and indirectly, but I've never met a company that said no to a salesperson going and finding their own food. So
Ah,
if, if
there.
if you if you if you go to your sales manager and you say, "Hey, I'm not getting the support that I need from marketing, either in volume, volume or quality, or both," then I'm going to go look for some food, right? I need to eat. And ask for the recommendation. Hey, anything in terms of qualification or criteria that you think I should be looking for specifically, anything, maybe the sales manager was an SDR and moved into sales management, or maybe they were a successful account executive before who did a lot of self prospecting. Ask them anything you've seen be successful before, ask for their feedback. And if they come back, Sean, and they say, look, we don't do any self-generation, marketing's reliant on everything, then I mean, you're in a weird situation. I've never met a company who said you're not allowed to go find your own leads in addition to whatever marketing's sending over, if at all. I mean, if you're in a 100% outbound role, you're definitely finding your own leads or working off targeted lead lists that someone in RevOps or sales operations has sent you. And if that is the case, and you're not eating and you're not getting good leads, then I know it's a tough economy, but I would say, maybe it's time to go flip burgers in the interim until you find somewhere where they're actually going to let you professionally develop yourself and enhance your skill set,
And the lesson learned there would be to ask that at the initial outset of any interview is, am I allowed to develop my own leads? And they may need to be vetted to make sure that, some other salesperson in the company is not already chasing them. But yeah, that's something that's definitely, in sales, we're dependent on ourselves. We have to take the initiative. It's one reason a lot of us are in this career field, because otherwise we should be working corporate, pulling a lever for 8 hours a day and getting paid a set amount. So for those that have that myth dispelled now, that you could probably go to your sales leader and say, hey, I'd love to get more leads. I want to take control of this. I'm going to take the initiative. That sales leader would probably say, why can't I find a bunch more people like you? So if we're past that hurdle now, talk to me a little bit about where salespeople tend to trip up in the initial days, because maybe I've only had my leads delivered by RevOps. I'd like to begin developing them, but I'm not really aware about the process that's being put into developing these lead lists by job title or by time and industry or by function that this person serves. So where do you see salespeople drop the ball in the initial days when they begin developing their own leads?
Yeah, they don't map out their buckets. And so you have three sales motions. You have inbound, outbound, and referral. Those are the three ways any company. Also, actually, let me backtrack. Have an entrepreneurial mindset. You're creating a business within a business at this point. And so if you think about the way that a business goes about demand generation, lead generation, whatever you want to call it, it's getting people into your sales pipeline, right? You think of the three motions: inbound, outbound, and referral. Those are your three sales motions. People come to us, we go to people, or we are indirectly introduced to people in one way or another. When you think of those three motions, now you can break those motions into buckets. Well, what's inbound? Well, that's people doing, filling out a demo form, get pricing, contact us. You have no control over that. That's your marketing team, right? But there's another form of inbound, and that's social media. And you can create your own social media. You can create your own content. What's important about this is now you're branding yourself as this person that solves this problem associated with this persona. And what's even better about that is once people end up hopping on a call with you, is they go like, wow, you speak the same language that you did on social media. Your messaging rings true. Lack of message consistency is a big problem for companies right now. That's a conversation for a whole nother time, but you have to break these buckets out. So you still have control of some of your inbound. You can still control social media. You can go on LinkedIn, create content. You can create content on TikTok. TikTok is not a dancing app for 14-year-olds anymore. I have 40, 50-year-old VPs of sales that have seen me on TikTok. I have people that have taken action from TikTok that you would go, wow, I can't believe that person's on TikTok. There's a person that took action from TikTok that became a customer. Their profile, they have like 49 followers and no profile picture. And their thing is still at user 3,970, whatever, right? Like they don't even have a username, but they were a VP of sales at a Series B company who found me on TikTok, came into my funnel from an offer that I had, and now they're a customer, right? So you can create content on TikTok. When you're creating content, when you're thinking about these things, especially outbound as well, when you're doing one-to-one outreach, you need to think of the way that marketing does outreach. They do one-to-many, but you are doing one-to-one in some form or fashion. And they follow the AIDA funnel: awareness, interest, desire, and action. And when you follow that methodology and you think about how can I get people aware of who I am, the company I work for, the problem we solve, and you can get them interested. Hey, this is how you can make money off solving this problem. You get them creating some form of desire. Hey, this is how people have cut costs and increased the revenue with solving this problem. And then you get them to take some action. go here, go sign up for our webinar that we're doing, go download an ebook that we have a conversation with me, something to that effect. That's how you get people to convert. So when we moved our second motion, when we moved our outbound motion, you think about cold outreach. That's a very common one. Well, how do I find people? Well, that's where you're going to leverage people internally to get an understanding of that. Hey, CMO, Chief Marketing Officer. Hey, Director of Marketing. When you build out your personas, when you build out your target audience and your target market, what are some of the identifiers that you look for? Hey, RevOps or Sales Ops Professional, when you're creating these cold outreach lists for us, what are some of the triggers that you put in place, or some of what's the ICP that you have, if you even want to go that simple? I mean, you should know your ICP at this point, but you get an understanding of who you're going to target when you do that one outreach, and your sequence structure should be the same exact way. That first email, that awareness email, it should simply be highlighting the problem associated with the use case that you work with every single day, how it's relevant to the persona, why it's relevant to them, what's the trigger you notice, whether it's something they're doing on their website, something they liked or commented on LinkedIn, a webinar they were on that they were talking about something, and then asking if they would be interested, or answering a question that you have about how they solve that problem. And then from there, it's a case study. You ping some sort of resource that your company has created. If your company hasn't created a resource, guess what? Go create a 30-second TikTok. Yeah, go create a 30-second TikTok and send that to them. When you think about it, there are three types of people: people that don't know that you exist or that you solve this certain problem, and people that don't know that the problem exists. There are people that know who you are and the problem that you solve, but they don't know that the problem exists in their company. And then the third type of person is typically what happens in inbound, where they know you and your company exist, they know the problem that you solve, and they know that they have a problem. And your job is to really go for the first two, the people that have no idea who you are, what your company does, or the problem that they solve, and then that they also don't even know that they have a problem. And it's all about that awareness first, then interest, desire, and action. So educate them on the problem. Action by association. Show them how it's affected similar buying personas. Fear of missing out. Show them what other buyer personas similar to them are doing and the results they're having, because now they're going to see that they're going to get left behind in the dust if they don't figure it out. It's like with my business. Sales teams are still hitting quota. I am working with teams that are still hitting quota. You know why you're not hitting quota if you're a sales leader right now? It's because you're more concerned about getting fired than you are actually achieving something. I mean, I talk to so many sales leaders right now that are in survival mode, and it's like, no, you can't think about survival mode. It's like, take it back to the battlefield. I've been watching Band of Brothers because it just got put on Netflix, and one of the guys in this show is like terrified, right? He's so afraid of everything that's going on. And then he meets one of the like real tough guys, Lieutenant Spears or whatever. And he goes, why are you not afraid? How does this not terrify you? And he goes, because when I showed up, I already accepted the fact that we're all dead. Yeah. And this guy is the guy that's running through a German line when nobody's firing at him. He's going and meeting up with iCompany. You have to have a little bit of the same mentality as a sales leader. Just assume that your average 10 years, 18 months, and you're going to get let go, and you're going to be blamed for not hitting a recent revenue target, because that's how founders, CEOs, and boards operate. You have to operate under that. And once you eliminate that, now you're fearless and you don't care. And you're going to go spend money on training. You're going to go spend money on professional development. And you're actually going to take the time to sit with your marketing leaders and figure out how to fix the misalignment that constantly happens between sales and marketing. But even sales leaders aren't taking enough ownership of that part of their process. But there are still sales teams hitting quota. So when I show that on my TikToks, when I show that on LinkedIn, and I show how we're helping sales teams do that, because we're showing people how to do better discovery. Now sales leaders are like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get fired and all my friends are still going to have a job if I don't figure this out, because I do have friends that are VPs of sales that are still hitting quota. So it's that action by association. It's that fear of missing out. And it all happens through education. Education, right, so you build off that education.
Let's talk about building that into a system then, Check. So I want to make sure that salespeople are listening to this. If you're not furiously writing like I've been the last couple of minutes, then you should be, because what Chet is dropping on you is really valuable stuff. It's a way for you to take the initiative and to take back control over the success that you have in this career field, of success of your pipeline, success of your customers' businesses, the people that we're here to serve. So, Chet, when we talked about sales systems, we talk about battlefield systems. So everything that you saw in Band of Brothers, all of the ways that they were running around and all the lessons that they were learning along the way, that all made it so when they went and fought in Korea, they were a little better. When they went to Vietnam, they were a little better. Desert Storm, a lot better. And when I was there in Iraq and with folks that I was serving with were in Afghanistan, everything that they learned back in World War II came into play because they were able to systemize what was working. So that's what we're going to do with your knowledge set. This is going to be, something that's going to be applicable enough to salespeople across the board, but I think we're going to really make it focused on how we can take back control of generating our own referrals. So because we're trimming hope with every new system, we'll use this acronym TRIM. The T in TRIM is the trigger element of this system. So if I'm in sales and I realize that I'm not getting enough leads from marketing, I'm not getting the quality of leads that I want, what should be my trigger? How far do I want to go into the hole with my pipeline before I begin taking the initiative? When should I pull this system off the shelf and begin to use it on the battlefield of business?
Constantly. It shouldn't be a thing you do when you're not winning. It should be a thing you do to stay winning and keep from not winning. Day one, the second you get in, you should be figuring out and building out your own internal prospecting system, whatever that looks like in your business. Number one, you can start with referrals. Who do I know that's relevant in this industry, that's relevant that I could possibly talk to about this product or this problem that we solve? Start with your personal network. Maybe you're an SDR, BDR, and you just switch careers and you don't have a personal network. That's fine. Go start building one. It's like what they say about working out. What you do today will make you stronger in 2 weeks, will make you unrecognizable in 30 days, right? Same thing. Start going and building your network. Well, how do you build a network? Well, start posting content on LinkedIn, connecting with like-minded people, get plugged into sales communities, and just start seeing who the players are. Start following them, see who they interact with, see who they talk to. You have to have a commitment to this, though. This takes a ton of time. It does. It takes a ton of time. The younger you are in your career, the harder this is going to be. But start with your personal network. If you don't have one, go build one. Start scrubbing your CRM. I'll tell you what, I can't believe there's always 1 or 2 reps at a company that understand how to scrub the CRM. I can't believe how many people don't make this a recurring thing. But there's so many easy wins. Understand your closed loss criteria. How long does a salesperson own a deal after it's closed? If that's 4 months, 6 months, great. Run a list of every closed lost opportunity that was closed lost 6 or more months prior. That should be the first thing that you're doing. If you haven't already done that or aren't doing that for a list of people to prospect to, then I don't know what the heck you're doing. I can't believe how many reps don't do that. That's a big one. And then also, like, companies are really bad at CRM data management. So you typically hear about like the people that used to work there. Figure out what their names are. They probably still have user licenses. Go search every account that's in their name that's had at least 1 or more contact enrolled in a sequence, and then go talk to all those people. Hey, I know these are the last 3 SDRs that worked here. For some reason, accounts are still in their name. I'm going to go and I'm going to figure out, what are all the accounts that have at least one person that have been enrolled in a sequence, because those must have been qualified enough to be enrolled in a sequence. And maybe your company is in a good enough position where that stuff is all handled through a Salesforce administrator or a CRM administrator or RevOps. Okay, great. Then on your first day, you know what you should be doing? You should be talking to whoever owns that side of the CRM, and you should be like, hey, I want to sit on a 30-minute call with you. I'd love to buy you lunch. I'm new. I just want to learn from you how you look at RevOps. Be friends with that person, right? Make friends in business, because guess what? The more you start to learn from others within the business that you're working at, the more you understand the rules of the game, the more you can make it work for yourself. These are the things you have to do to win, right? And it's not anything to say like be sketchy or there's data in your CRM already, and nobody's mining it. Typically, nobody is mining it. And I'll tell you what, if there is someone that's 120% to quota, SDR or BDR specifically, that person has probably figured out how to mine the CRM. And RevOps professionals, sales ops professionals have so much on their plate that they don't typically get around to it. But you have to learn. Sit with people outside of sales and learn. And that's the best way.
Chet, you've already jumped into the R in TRIM, which is how do I make this system repeatable? So what are the steps I need to do to execute? You gave us a bunch of great ones. You said first, scrub your CRM, look at your personal network or start building one. Start with your referrals as well from existing customers. You mentioned searching the accounts of salespeople that had already left the company, because there's probably some good business sitting in there. And I'll add one more to the list before we move into the next part of this process, which is your orphaned accounts. There's probably accounts that are just sitting in your own CRM that have been assigned to you that don't have a next step on them. So make sure you're driving into those. See, are those accounts worth re-engaging with? Because they're probably sitting there. They're going to buy from somebody. It might as well be you. So if we've got the trigger in making this repeatable, Chet, I want to dive into the thing that the military really thrives on, which is improving. There's a famous saying in all the units I was with that if you're not evolving, you're falling behind. So I want to make sure that I'm improving the way that I'm sourcing my own leads over time. Let's say I'm using this system for a couple of weeks or a quarter. How do I want to take a look at it and say, you know what? How do I make this thing better? Am I looking at the quality of conversion? Am I looking at the types of people that I'm engaging with? Are they engaging back with me? How am I going to improve my own lead generating system?
Well, I think in terms of improving, yeah, you look at conversion rates, you compare those historically with others. Comparison is the thief of joy, except in sales. So compare it to your compare it to your cohorts and see, like, hey, are these leads that I'm finding on my own, are they converting at a higher or a lower clip? Are they, is the ACV higher or lower? Is the closed won rate higher or lower? You can use that as a standing ground. But in terms of improvement, I think, like, how do I get to the perfect world scenario? And I think the next step is reinvest some of your earnings. If you don't have Zoom info or a data tool, go buy it. Once you started making more money from all the new leads that you've been generating, go buy it. And now start getting deeper into finding companies with, learn the NAICS codes, learn how that applies to your industry and who you're calling. It's pretty easy if you sell something like technology to construction contractors or, technology to hospitality, specifically, like if you're speaking about restaurants, hotels, that sort of thing. But figure out what your NAICS code is and go start building your own lead lists. Start matching those leads up in your CRM and seeing, hey, does somebody already own this account? If they do, what are the touch rules? Because now you have a massive database outside of your database and you're just comparing and contrasting. Oh, this is Sean's lead, but they exited a sequence 4 months ago and he hasn't re-engaged it in over 90 days. That's outside of touch rules. It's good to go. I'm going to put this in my name now because it's just dead weight in his world. You know what I mean? So I think for me, improving is with anything. You look at the numbers, you compare and contrast and evaluate, reverse engineer backwards. Where am I losing it? But I think for me, improving is also how can I reinvest in myself and reinvest in this process? And I think the more things that you can reinvest in yourself and do to improve your system, it's about that perfect world scenario where you're almost running your entire business on your own within that business, where you're like, yeah, I mean, I know plenty of reps that have bought data enrichment tools at companies they worked at who didn't have them. I know tons of reps that go, hey, I'm just going to go buy Zoom info. I know it's $199 a month or whatever, but I don't care because now I have unlimited information and I'm 2xing my pipeline and making, $40,000 a year more in commission. It's worth that investment.
ROI. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
So now
very simple ROI.
We're into the M and trim, which is to make sure that the time I'm investing in doing this is worth it. Because I could just be sitting around, like you said, watching Netflix, but it's going to take time for me to scrub my CRM. It's going to take time for me to develop my personal network more. What am I going to measure at the end of doing this for a couple of weeks or a quarter to see, is this better system than the one I was using before? What are some leading indicators so I know, hey, my pipeline's moving in the right direction because I'm taking the initiative?
Yeah, I think total opportunities generated is going to be your number one indicator. I mean, leads are great. Yeah, we could measure, total responses from leads. As that increases, it's all some sales consultants would say it's all about targeting conversations, and some people might say no for now, but it's not a no forever. And I believe in that. That's a very long game though. So when the average tenure of a sales rep is 14 months, it's kind of tough to justify that. I do like looking at total conversation replies, whether it's from email, phone call, whatever that might be, social media. Because then when you go to your next gig, right, it's more people to talk to if they're a potential fit. But I think ultimately when you're talking about lead generation, the end goal, the outcome that we want, I always say recognize behaviors first, though outcome second. But the outcome that you want is how many of those turned into generated sales opportunities, SQOs, sales qualified opportunities. The more that increases, the better. I think that's your main measurable. Of course, total conversations is good. Conversations, replies via email, people that pick up the phone and you have at least a 2-minute conversation with them, something where they give you an objection, you're at least getting past that objection. How do you track all that stuff? Well, it depends on your tech stack. Your tech stack can track a lot of that for you. I have a SDR like activity tracker that even full cycle AEs use. And it's just a Google sheet. But I think you become a little bit more intentional when you're actually tracking your activity every single day and logging it, and then you're measuring it month over month, quarter over quarter. But I give that away to everybody, whether they're in my SDR to AE program or whether I'm consulting with a company and we're talking about execution from a consulting perspective, because I think If you wait for someone to give you your data, it's typically bad news, right? Like, think about it. If somebody says, hey, let's talk about the numbers, it's typically not a good conversation. But if you're prepared and armed with your own data, now you can present it and go, hey, can I get some feedback here? I've 3x my dials, but I've only added 3% additional conversion from my leads to SQOs. What do you think I'm doing? Sales manager can go, oh, let's listen to some of your cold calls, right? Instead of your sales manager going, hey, we're giving you a ton more lead volume, or you have a lot more lead volume, but we're seeing such a low conversion rate, then it's bad news. Don't let somebody come to you with the data. Always be armed with your data and look for feedback. But you only get that by measuring your activity yourself, right? And adding stuff from the
That
CRM.
goes right back to taking the initiative on your pipeline. So great
Mhm.
system end to end. This is not even how to fuel your pipeline. This is how do you drop a bunch of extra octane into the fuel that you're getting. Because the salespeople that are listening to this, you need to understand wherever you are in your sales journey, wherever you are in your organizational stack, you have the ability now with just a couple of things that Chet shared with us to take the initiative back on what quality of leads you have, and how much time you're spending with those leads to make sure that you are growing a network that goes with you job to job. There's just so much good stuff in this sales system, Chad. I knew we were going to have a good conversation the moment that I read your bio. So for folks that are interested in getting deeper in your world, there's probably a lot of salespeople out there that want to start following you. How do they find out more? Where should they go first?
Hey, you just go to LinkedIn. Everything I publish from all social media ends up there. It's kind of an aggregate or a single source of truth. Just Chet Lovegren. You look it up, Lovegren. You'll see the name also says AKA the sales doctor, and you'll see a little stethoscope. So you can click there. I got a bunch of resources there. I publish all my resources there. You want to join a newsletter? Not like everybody needs another newsletter to join, but I got everything you could want or possibly engage with is there.
Awesome, sir. Well, make sure that we're tagging you in the show notes on that so people can find you. For those of you that are watching this on our live stream channel, make sure you subscribe into that YouTube channel there where every single one of these conversations, brilliant stuff like this, is archived for you, absolutely free. And if you're listening to us on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, anywhere that podcasts can be found, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Let salespeople know around the world that sales and hope no longer have to go together, as Chet showed us today with lead generation. So, Chet, thanks so much for giving back to the sales community, sir. Now we can be bulletproof in how we prospect. So let's get out there and make the rest of our sales bulletproof. Thanks so much for coming on, sir.
Thank you.